All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to tonight's webinar where we're going to talk about conversations with clients about price, which is always fun, especially when we transition into our fall or winter market. It starts to get interesting where you have conversations with clients about price pretty much on a regular basis. So we'll talk about some ideas or some tools tonight that might help you in bringing those tools with you on those pricing conversation appointments. Or maybe you're doing these conversations on Zoom and you need to have a visual. I'll give you, by the end of tonight's session, you should have at least 3 or 4 that you could put up on the screen and really talk to help your clients make good decisions about price. So that's what we're going to cover tonight. I'm not going to go into the fundamentals of how to do a cloud CMA or how to do a CMA. That is a separate class. And I'm happy to let you guys know if you're new to the business and you need some help with doing a CMA, that is something you're going to probably need to get some help with a mentor or with me in a personal session or with Candace in going over in a personal session how to go about doing that. So again, tonight is not about doing a CMA. It's more about having the conversation and having the tools that you need to discuss with your seller or your buyer about price. Shannon, if you could put up on the screen the Best Choice Realty resource guide is bestchoicerealtyhomes.com. We have a lot of information that we can gather from that. It's just right on our resource guide. It's that cute little doggy with the umbrella. And if you go down, this is just a refresher for some of you who've joined earlier sessions. There is seller presentation there. If you want to click that, Shannon, that would be great. That's where you can gather some of the information that might be handouts that you could use in your pricing conversations. One of my favorite ones, though, is key market factors. You want to pull that one up. It's right there on the right. Again, all of these are downloadable PDFs, which are nicely done with our colors, which make it really good for presentations. Or if you're trying to assemble a package, maybe you don't need a CMA, you just have to have a conversation with a potential seller about what's it going to take in this market to properly price my home and get it done in the amount of time that I need it to be done. And a lot of people think it's just about the price. All you want to do is get my home sold for a certain price because that's when you earn a commission. But it's a lot of things that go into price or what you should market your home to do, what listing price should I use. And so I like this worksheet or this sheet that we have for key market factors because it goes after really 6 things that you can control and some things you can't control as their real estate broker. Certainly with price is what people are really focused on, but it's not always about price. Location, I like to bring to their attention. Based on the location, the single greatest factor of affecting the property value is location, location, location. If you've read or looked at real estate books or investments, they always say when you buy your home, that's when you make your money. And that truly is the case because we can't, as listing agents, control the location that a buyer had selected when they purchased. So the desirability, the neighborhood, right now we're running into some problems with certain listings in that they're in a location where there might be some crime or there might be some homeless encampments nearby. Again, location is something that we cannot control as real estate brokers, but if we tinkered with the price, that could make the adjustment for the location. So you need to have that conversation a bit more candidly with your sellers when they're discussing, why is my home not selling? I've had it on the market. It's not all about the price, although that price can solve for location, but we need to discuss the other key market factors. And that would be these 6 things that we have on the screen here. The other one being buyer's terms. And I have this conversation a lot with newer listing agents that fail to maybe input the data correctly, such as, does this property also accept FHA, VA, or Washington State grant programs? Does this property allow for these types of buyer terms? And can we structure the listing in such a way where it will meet a wider audience of buyers than just a small segment? For example, if I listed a home today and it was a fixer-upper, and I called a contractor and had them replace the siding because it had lost Louisiana Pacific or LP siding, I could potentially attract a wider audience because I helped that seller solve that problem. Meaning, if they tried to sell that the Louisiana Pacific product of siding on their property as an as-is cash-only listing, it would only appeal to an investor marketplace, where we're trying to appeal to a wider audience and have more buyers that are being attracted to that particular listing. So in that example, having more terms available, having the seller working with you to maybe do some repairs if necessary. We'll go into condition in a minute. But the broad market being very flexible with financing and closing dates will result typically in higher prices. Contract terms structured to meet your objectives could also minimize the amount of buyers. So if you put too many restrictions on, say, I have to be out of my house, I need 90 days in order for me to find another house, that might not attract a wide enough audience when it comes to buyers' terms. So that's also a consideration when you're pricing a home. Condition is certainly a consideration when it comes to marketing or pricing a home, because the condition can affect basically the speed, but also the price. So optimizing the physical appearance of the home or the property can definitely help in marketability of the property's value and maximizing that. So for example, if the condition, and I see a lot of new agents mess this up as well, they will price a home just basically with averages, and they fail to consider that, hey, the property down the street had significant amount of repairs done to it. They had new kitchen cabinetry, new flooring put in throughout. And so they needed to, if you looked at their CMA, they needed to adjust the comparable so that it matched, it was a valid comparable because it was close to the proximity of the subject, but the condition perhaps was better than the subject, meaning that they had done a lot of repairs. They had done a lot of like carpet allowance, for example. So to make that comparable make sense in the marketplace, I may needed to have adjusted that comparable to then incorporate and give me the true market value of the subject. So condition is something to consider. If you are not adjusted for comparables, or you need some more practice at doing that, that's where you would essentially do the CMA for yourself, for your seller, and then come to me, come to Shannon, come to Candace, come to Jerry Kay, when we're available to help you, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about making this adjustment to this comparable because my subject does not have new carpeting throughout. Do you think it would be fair enough to say that I could adjust it by $10,000? And then we could say yes or no, you really can't in that particular situation or neighborhood. But condition is important to consider when you're pricing a property. The competition, that's something we're going to discuss in a minute, but there are 3 different competition strategies, if you will, to consider when you're pricing a property, and buyers will compare your property to all of the competing similar properties. So right now it's difficult because the competition sometimes is actually further out than you would anticipate because there's no active. Say I was taking a listing right now in Burien, and I can tell you I have to go out probably 1.5 miles to find another active comparable in that 450 to 500 price range. So that competition is actually extended beyond just your mile radius. And you need to consider the competition maybe even up to 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 miles from the subject in order to find that competition. And what you're doing when you're looking for the competition to help your sellers achieve the value or the price that they need to go for is you have to kind of explain to them, hey, when buyers shop, they compare your property to other split levels or other ramblers in the area, depending on what subject you're dealing with. They will often go out a couple miles, 2, 3, 4 miles, because there is no existing inventory in our area right now. And so what we want to do, if we're going to properly price your home, is look at the competition. Start obviously narrow with your subject being the core element, and then going out 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, looking for active comparables. The active comparables, if I was looking for a Rambler, for example, in a certain area, that it might take me 2 miles before I find an active Rambler on the market with a similar square footage and similar lot size. And that is what I want to be clued into. And I want to bring that to my seller's attention, because that competition is what that buyer is going to be looking at and comparing. So they'll be trying to compare apples to apples as much as possible. So you should consider that when you're doing your analysis. The last thing we'll cover on this page, which is super helpful, is the timing. So is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Is it a balanced market? In different areas of where we operate, it may be starting to trend to a buyer's market. You should know the timing or how long things stay on the market in your given category. Say, I segmented my different price categories, entry level, middle, like move up buyers, and then luxury. For example, the luxury market in specific areas is stayed on the market. It's become trending more to be a buyer's market in some of the areas of Seattle. So that type of timing would be important to convey to a potential seller to help them understand, where do I price? Do I price in the top part of the market, like kind of a bit over market value? Do I price it kind of right at market value, or do I undervalue it to drive the activity? In a marketplace where the inventory is super, super high, meaning there's more actives in the area than there are solds, then it's not a seller's market, and you need to understand how to convey that to your sellers. So Shannon, if you could go ahead, I've used this worksheet as a way just to talk through maybe an important point of how to properly balance all of these 6 things. That's essentially what you're trying to do, is balance all 6 items in properly pricing the property. But let's look at the importance of pricing. Now, this is something you can easily download from the MLS when you use their CMA package. I believe Cloud CMA also has this, but it's super helpful. I've even taken this, and on WeChat, I've taken a picture of this particular page, and it could work for any listing. I just went on to the MLS and pulled it down from the MLS. I wanted to see if they still had it, and they do. It's in their CMA package. The importance of pricing is what it's called, and you can see based on this triangle, if a seller had a question for me about pricing, Rochelle, should I overprice it? Just because I want to test the marketplace out, or should I price it at market value? And I like the way this triangle shows you how many active buyers, percentage of buyers who are interested in your property, the more you put it down to the minus 15% below market value. And we have other agents from other companies that are pricing at that level and driving the prices up close to market value. Some people are leaving money on the table because of certain circumstances that are outside of their control. For example, job loss, divorce, things of that nature. We're starting to see that adjustment happen right before our eyes. And I think it's important right now, as we kind of go into the fall winter market and you're going out on a listing appointment, you might want to pull out this triangle and go over it with your sellers and just point blank ask them, where in this triangle, what strategy would you like me to employ for you? Would you like to be at market value, where we have 60% of the buyer eyeballs on this listing? Or would you like to be 15% over and only have 10% of the buyer eyeballs? Now, certainly if we go 15%, we need to be prepared for a price reduction strategically, and we need to be prepared to stay on the market longer. That is the kind of conversation that you need to be having with your sellers when you're discussing this triangle. And once they see this triangle, they kind of get it. And then they can be realistic about the pricing strategy or the CMA numbers that you're setting in front of them. They can say, okay, this is kind of where I want to go, Rochelle. I kind of want to be right at market value. And then I know exactly how to handle things and handle the preparation and the appointment. Go to the next slide. This other one is also, I like this, this activity versus timing. Also, Cloud CMA has this available in their package. Again, I wanted to see if the CMA on the MLS had it, and they do still have this slide. But this chart illustrates, once you have it active on the market, this is kind of a helpful sheet that I sometimes use when I'm talking with a seller about the activity that we're receiving on the MLS. Usually first-time sellers, they have not done this process before, so they need a little bit more education. And this activity versus timing shows you that on day 0, when it goes live on the market, it takes a little bit of momentum. And this is 1 week, to get up there, a few days on the market. And if it's priced right, that is basically what you're seeing. You're seeing a trend line, activity versus timing, where 1 to 2 weeks, it starts to drop off and then it needs some more love. The listing needs some more attention. Many of you ask me, how often should I be doing a CMA on my particular property? And if you're not looking at what's going on within a mile radius of your subject, you're missing a huge opportunity to convey that information to your seller. That's the worst thing you can do, is to have a seller find local information without you being the one to deliver that information. All of a sudden they see the neighbor's house go on the market and they see that, uh-oh, that one went pending and mine's still sitting there. And then they start blaming the listing agent. That's usually what happens. And then I get the phone call, and by that time it's usually week 3 or 4 or 5, where then we need to start talking about, what does the price strategy look like? How do we also adjust the marketing efforts to match the pricing strategy? So you really want to, as a listing agent, watch that first 2 weeks of activity versus timing. I'm going to show you a quick way to do that. If you can show Shannon, then go ahead and go on to the matrix. We're going to skip over the next. If you guys want the goodies, I'll be happy to send this off to you. Just let Shannon know or send me a quick email and I'll be happy to get this over to you. But yeah, if you can go to if you're logged in, you're gonna have to log in out of you, Shannon, log in as me, because you don't have a listing right now that I can show. There is a statistic on the My Matrix. There is a way to go in there and look at statistical information. And we might give it a minute here while she's doing that. There are, obviously different things you can pull from the MLS. There's obviously some things you can pull from our resource guide on bestchoicerealtyhomes.com. And then there is the third place that you could go and pull down some information would be Cloud CMA, which also has, several of you have accounts with Cloud CMA, and we love Cloud CMA at Best Choice Realty. If you do not do enough CMAs, you can use a free version with using my account until you have the funds to be able to have your own account. There are many benefits of having your own, but to take advantage of the additional resources that we've gone over today, I think it might be smart, and I'll show you how to use it, the Cloud CMA, right from Matrix. So if you can go to My Matrix, Shannon, let's go right there. You can see that I should have my listings down at the very bottom. I'm still getting used to where everything is located on the new Matrix, but go ahead and click on that. And this is where you can see, I don't have any current listings right now, but if I did, they would show up right here. Go ahead and click on my pending. Shannon, let's see if I can get anything there. Let's go to all my pending. There we go. That's good. That's fine right there. When you check the box, it opens up a new screen, and then you can reverse prospect. And when you reverse prospect, it's going to give you a list of all of the buyer's agents who had expressed interest. And I have been known where I can take that data and basically map it, and I can show you or show your client on the screen very simply that 2-week window of time. Remember that flyer or that piece I showed you just before this? That activity versus timing, where it being 2 weeks, I can almost map it to the reverse prospecting statistics. And then I could go back to the seller and say, hey, we've tried your price at, say, $750 for the last 2 weeks, and look at all of the activity, all of the people that I've contacted, all of the real estate agents I have fielded calls from, all of the hits that we have received on the MLS. I wish I could show you, Shannon. You can't click it because it's grayed out, but you would be available to do it on active. But all of that list would be important knowledge you would then share with your seller to say, I've done a good job. Here's what I've done. And we need to discuss not only the marketing strategy or the demographics or who we're attracting this property to, but we also need to consider what is our pricing strategy? What does that need to look like? And I've done a CMA. Every 2 weeks, I do a CMA, and here's what has changed in this area. There have been no sales in the condo market, in the downtown condo market, in over a month. So we're not competing with the downtown condo market. We're competing with some of the single family detached housing that's happening in that 1 mile radius or in that nearby location, or that competition, as you will. So it's super important that you go in regularly. If you have a listing, and I had one agent that I trained a long time ago, and she's like, Rochelle, I worked in my company for over 10 years. And I didn't even know that my matrix and my listings, that really rich data was stored there. And I was like, wow, shame on that broker for not training you correctly. But again, remind them, Shannon, go to my matrix. And then where we go to find that information out is right into my listings. If you have an active listing, you check the box and then you click on reverse prospecting and it comes right up, and the data is rich and you can email right from that point. But more importantly, you got names and phone numbers, and I would pick up the phone and have some conversations with some agents if you are looking for market intelligence to share with your sellers. That's fundamental. That is basic real estate marketing in its finest, is reaching out to those cooperative brokers and asking for feedback, or asking for them to take another look at your listing that you may have dropped the price on. So you may want to consider doing that more than you have in the past as we start to transition. Let's go back to my matrix. I want to show everybody how to go to your carts. If you are using, go to my carts. If you are using, say, carts to store your, maybe your your subject and then your comparables, just go ahead and click on the cart, Shannon. Yep, the single family, one of them, yeah. And we're just going to grab, there's where it says results. Click on results. And I just put 13 here in the queue. And when you pull up the results, check the boxes of a couple of them. There you go. And we're just, again, I'm just being quick at just finding 3 comparables. Go ahead and click the 3 comparables, Shannon. You have to first click something first. And then you can import them right on into Cloud CMA. I don't know if you guys knew this. For some of you that's been around a long time, there's a direct link that the Northwest MLS has right to from the MLS matrix right into Cloud CMA. They started that about a year ago, and I have not used it as much as I should. I'm sitting there typing up MLS numbers, and I'm like, dang it, this works pretty slick. It goes right on into your Cloud CMA account. So you can click on Cloud CMA, Shannon, so they can see that. Yeah, perfect. And it will log you in to your CMA. So go ahead and log in. There we go. If you need the login and password for the free account, just send us a message after the call, or a text is fine, and I'll be happy to give you the login and password so you can essentially use my account to create some CMAs and really get good at using the tool. It's taking a minute. It takes about a minute to bundle that data that's coming from the MLS. But when it does, it pulls it all in, and then you just need to customize and manipulate the data. So it actually does save you some time. It doesn't like it that I'm on Zoom. I can tell that right now. We'll give it another minute, and then I might have to opt to do that in our actual CMA class. Yeah, I'm impatient today, Shannon. So go ahead and go back to Matrix. But that's what you would do, and I did it without Zoom, and it worked just great today. Go ahead and click on Matrix. The other place I want to bring your attention to, and some of you are like, okay, I want to just use what I'm familiar with, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't have as many pictures or pretty pictures or the user-friendly or the customization that we could use with the cloud, but there is, go back down to the bottom, there is the other CMA that the MLS puts together that's towards the left, actually to the right of print. Go back, Shannon. She's getting antsy here. There we go. Check the boxes, and then there's a CMA button right there. Go ahead and click that. And this is how I pulled those pages this morning. If you're like, I just need that page that Rochelle went over on the screen, go ahead, and you do have to put a client in. McKinley is fine. You don't need a description. I'm just going to go ahead and click pages. And then we go ahead and should open up. There we go. Manage custom pages down below. See the bottom of that little box? And then that's where I found those different, I could upload anything. So I could manipulate the CMA that's on the MLS. It's just not as user-friendly as, say, the cloud CMA would be. So let's cancel out of that. But there is a place where you click on pages. Click on the pages up above. We're in pages. Oh, I know, static. That's where it's at. Click on static, the plus sign next to static. Right below map. In the available pages. There we go. But now go back to static. Click on static. There you go. Importance of pricing, activity versus timing. It gives you a lot of options here, and you can remove or delete them. But the ones I discussed earlier that I did a PDF for, they're right there in the CMA, and you can grab that triangle, or you can do the importance of pricing. But there's some other good ones that would also might benefit you in a particular situation that are right there in the MLS. Let's go into, and again, you could finish in PDF and basically have a CMA package the old way, I guess you could say, or you can use the cloud CMA. One way or the other is getting the job done. Let's jump in, go ahead with the Form 18 or 19, Shan. So we're gonna go back to a little bit of forms knowledge. Okay, go click on the Northwest MLS home. And a lot of you have asked me, okay, Rochelle, I had the conversation with the seller. We finally got them realistic. How do I change the price? How do I change up the game? And you can simply go to your input. If you're changing the price, because all of you have input rights, you all can go in and change the price at a moment's notice. You don't need necessarily a signature, although I think it would be smart to get something in writing from your seller, and both sellers at that. We don't want the husband saying, yeah, it's okay to drop my price from $650 to $600, and the wife is not on board with that. So my only request is that, you know, before you change the price on the input, and you guys can do that on your own by simply going to input and updating, that you get something in writing from your sellers, even an email, or a text message from both sellers if it's a husband and wife situation before you reduce the price. Go ahead and just pick one, Shannon, so I can show you guys how to do that. I'm not going to do it. Don't freak out, Lillian Baker. Go ahead and click on the next one of her listings. And then, so I could go in there and do it for you, or you can go in there and do it. But it's going to take a moment, and we want to go in and quickly modify it. And it does take a moment for it to do that. It brings up the data entry, and then you just need to change the price on that price that you have. And that's it. Before you do that, though, you really should have them sign something. So looks like it's taking its time to show that as well. Let's go back to the Express form, Shannon. Oh, maybe it came up. There we go. Change the data input. That's where you would change the price. And again, since you guys have the rights to do that, you could go in and change the price, $753. So people always ask me, okay, well, does $3,000 make a difference? If it's more than 5%, it gets pushed out to all of the brokers again. So you may want to consider a sizable price drop. If this seller was my seller, and we have been on the market for several weeks with no offers, and we're in an area where things are moving pretty quickly. Again, remember the triangle. I may be overpriced, or maybe my condition or my price needs to be adjusted because my condition does not match my competition. You see how well I can use that one sheet to kind of explain and position your seller in a way to convince them to drop the price without having to do a lot. Should I put new carpeting? No, it's not worth it to do that. It would be better just to reduce the price and get a buyer for you. There are conversations like that that can take place, and all you need to do is change the price right here. But I mean, a little drop in the bucket may not be the right move. You may want to wait and gather more market intelligence before you decide to do the price adjustment. When you do a price adjustment, you really also should consider adjusting your marketing remarks, adjusting your photography, adjusting who is your demographic. Maybe what you say in the marketing remarks also needs to be adjusted. It's not just a price adjustment. It's an entire market adjustment that needs to be made when you do a price adjustment like that. And when I do that, I tell my sellers, if you're going to do a sizable price drop to match the market knowledge, again, it's not me saying this, it's the market that's telling us this, or it's the real estate agents that I've contacted to gather intelligence that have buyers looking at your particular location. It is those people that we are, if you're wanting to be motivated to sell and you've asked me to do a job, I'm just giving you that information so that you can properly make a good decision on your price. Then you just need to get their approval on it. But that's really where you would change the price and you click submit and it's done. It's effectively getting out to all of those areas. And again, it does not get pushed out in emails if it's not a sizable price reduction. So you might want to think about that strategy. People always ask, Rochelle, should I price it at like 800,000 even, or should I go 799? Really, I could argue it really depends on the particular area or the location and the segmentation of that particular area of the marketplace. Sometimes it would make a difference and sometimes it doesn't. Some of the online aggregators will only pull, certain things up to 700. The way they set their calculations is kind of funky. So that might be a consideration, but again, it shouldn't be the basis. At the end of the day, a price is what a buyer is willing to pay. So status input change, Form 19. If you send this to me, a Form 19, you can get the seller's signature on this. This can make it more official, where it's, hey, we sat down, we had a conversation, or we did a Zoom meeting to discuss your pricing after, say, a 2-week or month on the marketplace, and you decided, seller, to reduce it. You can go ahead and check the box, and then you can initial the bottom. And then it requires, anytime you use a Form 19 for price changes, it does not require me to sign, but you can certainly send it to me for electronic signature. That makes it even more powerful when you actually get it to your seller. You're like, oh dang, I even took your property and got it in front of my designated broker who also validated that this was a smart move. I will certainly sign the bottom, but just please send it to me for electronic signature on Authentisign so that I get a lot of these throughout the month. And again, it's not necessary, but if it helps you with your business and really driving home your point, I'm all for it. And I think it's pretty smart to start using Form 19, especially if you're going to maybe cancel or take it temporarily off the market. There are strategies for doing that. If you cancel, then you have to, it opens up a Pandora's box and allows any broker to go after that potential seller. And I think the last time I had somebody cancel it, they said that their seller was called 7 times within the first hour. So be careful when you just cancel something. I mean, you really have to not want to work with the seller if you want to cancel something. I would tend to opt for the temporarily off the market if you're going to do significant repairs. It has to be a minimum of 7 days, and it does require me to sign the bottom of this. But that could be a great strategy where, hey, we're going to do some carpeting or we're going to do some painting that you recommended, Rochelle. Let's do it, take it off the market while we get that stuff done. Or maybe I'm taking it off the market for the 2 weeks around the holiday, the Thanksgiving season, because I don't want people coming and going through my property. Take it off the market for that at least 7-day period. That way your counter or your days on market stop counting during that period of time. Again, it requires the seller's signature, your signature, and mine to do the temporarily off the market, but it keeps your term or your listing term the same. So your 1A that talks about your term would stay the same. The other last thing I'll leave you guys with, I know I'm out of time, is the Form 18, which Form 19 is status changes. It's how we communicate with the local MLS. There's rules associated with that. If you don't know the rules, better ask than to mess up and do it wrong, and I can help and guide you along the way. But the Form 18 is a contractual change that you can sign and get the seller to agree to. So this might be a good form to have in your back pocket or to have available when you take a listing. I often like to use the Form 1A and the Form 18 because when we have that conversation about the triangle and the seller who's being unrealistic about price as we're going into what tends to be a slower marketplace, we want to make sure we set the proper expectations. So this is a form you can use to proper set expectations, either by checking the other and writing some language in there about what the seller agrees to do and when, or to just simply say the listing price is changed to blank. This is also another way to do the same thing as a Form 19. Either a Form 19 or Form 18 really should be done and agreed upon by the parties before you make a price adjustment. But I use that a lot. Seller understands that after 4 weeks on the market, a price adjustment of $10,000 is necessary. Okay, again, that would be a good way to kind of set the stage for that strategy. You could review Exhibit B. You could make your CMA part of the contract. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Again, I'm just giving you some creative ways to think about how to deal with a challenging seller and things that I've used in the past that have worked really well. Best Choice Realty agrees to virtually stage all of the photographs that are in the master bedroom, the kitchen, as well as doing the price adjustment. I mean, these are just some creative things that we could come up with together. But again, it would need to be agreed upon, and it's nice to put it into the contract so that they know what you're going to do. Aside from the fact of adjusting their price, the seller also wants to know, what are you going to do as a marketer, as an advertiser, as my agent to get a buyer for my property? And this, you could do an ultimate open house where we put up a lot of signs. We can now do open houses. Again, don't get your sellers thinking that the open house is going to save them. We are still not getting a lot of activity at the open houses, not to the levels we had before COVID. So I don't think that that is the reason for their home not selling. And I've had conversations with at least 2 other brokers in regards to well, my agent didn't do an open house, so I don't think, she's doing a good job. It's not about the open house. I usually have to bring the sellers back to what I started with tonight, you guys, which is the 6 different market things that impact real estate. And we got to kind of talk through each of those items to help them understand where do they really need to be. And sometimes it's not about price. Sometimes it is about marketing or placement or location or describing that potential buyer in the marketing remarks. Or sometimes it just needs to be on the market longer. The days on market are going to extend. So keep that in mind when you're having those conversations. And if you have specific questions outside of this training tonight about a particular listing, I've spoken with many of you, but again, doors open. Jerry K, Shannon, Candace, and I, and Nick all have our real estate licenses and would welcome that type of feedback or that kind of interaction from you if you're needing another set of eyes on something. So hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for jumping on today's call. And Shannon, if there's any questions, I'll probably have to respond to the email because we're about out of time.